Recording in progress. So the first thing we're going to do is go over some frequently asked questions about the study group process. So the first question is what study group process can I give your programs of the engagement like study project, where you could have a work practical, and yes, what your study permit. When should you apply? You should apply before the expiration date of your current study permit and co-op work permit. Very important that you never let your current permits expire. If you do let them expire, you will face a lot of issues, not just with Immigration Canada, but also with your academic studies. So, usually what we recommend is if your study permit is expiring and your co-op work permit, that you apply to extend those 3 to 4 months before they're set to expire. That gives you a little bit of leeway in case you do need to apply again. You have that extra time. However, you do have up until the day that your study permit expires to apply. So if for some reason you're not able to get your documentation early, you have up until the day that your study permit expires to apply. Now, what happens when you've applied for your study permit, you're still waiting for a result, and your study permit has expired? Well, you'll be under what's called maintained status. What that means is even though your document has expired, because you applied before it expired, you're still allowed to continue studying and working under the same conditions of your study permit. So, while you're waiting for a decision, you're allowed to continue studying and working. However, you must remain in Canada to keep that maintained status. If you have to leave the country and then come back, you'll lose your maintained status. So you'll still, you won't be able to study and work until a decision has been made on your application. Now, what happens if you let your study permit expire before you apply for an status? And then that can cause you a lot of problems. You'll have to stop studying and working immediately. You need to apply for your restoration status within 90 days of your study permit expiring. You must remain in Canada while the restoration application is in process. And again, you cannot resume your studies until your status has been restored. On top of that, there will be an additional fee. I believe it's $250 or $200 for the restoration fee, and that's on top of the normal study permit fee. So you won't be able to work, you won't be able to study, and you'll have to pay extra money for your application. What it also means is that for your future immigration applications, you'll have to indicate, there's a section where it asks you if you've ever remained beyond the validity of your status. And for all your future applications, you will have to indicate that yes, you did remain in Canada while out of status, and you'll also have to give an explanation as to why. So very important that you do apply, check your study permit date, and make sure you apply before it expires. Okay. Next question. When is the immigration medical exam or IME required? So, So for all of you that are studying here in Canada, you would have done an IME when you first applied for your study permit. When you're applying for an extension, you don't necessarily need to submit that IME again. The only exception is if you are studying in a program that is dealing with childcare, such as the ECE program, or if you're dealing with a program that's in the healthcare field, so such as the PSW program or the Internationally Educated Nurses program, where you will be working in a hospital setting, you must include your IME exam. If you do not, they will put a condition on your study permit that prohibits you from working in the healthcare fields, childcare fields, or fields that deal with vulnerable populations such as the elderly. So very important, especially if you have a co-op with working with children, elderly, or in hospitals, that you do submit your IME exam so that you're able to work in those fields. Another frequently asked question, do I need a provincial attestation letter or the PAL? No, you do not. So for study permit extensions, you do not need a PAL. When we're going through the application, you'll see there's a section that asks if you're exempt, at which point you will choose yes, you are exempt. So the PAL is only for overseas students who are applying for their study permit for the first time. If you're doing an extension, you do not need a PAL. Great. So let me look at the Q&A. If my course is ending December 15th, 2024, and the study permit expires on December 31st, 2024. So in that case, you'll have enough time to apply for your work permit, your final grades, and your transcript will be out before December 31st. And again, guys, as I mentioned before, please do try and keep your questions about topics that is on the current slide or a slide I've already covered. If you have questions that I don't cover by the end of this session, you can ask them at the end and I'll answer them then. Okay, so the application process. So there are 5 to 6 steps in the study permit application process. First step being, you will have to create an Ircc online account. Steps 2 and 3, you will, after you've created the account, you will log into the account and answer the questionnaires so the system knows you. Additional documents that you need to upload, or if Ircc requests additional documents, we will show you how you can do that via the web. So, just give me 1 second here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the IMM form from the study permit application guide that we at Conestoga make available to our international students. So while I'm walking through the application, I'll go over some of the frequently asked questions or the parts of the application that students frequently get stuck on, just so you have an idea or you can be prepared for that when you come across it in your application. So this form here is the IMM 5709, also known as the application to change conditions, extend my stay, or remain in Canada as a student. At the end of this webinar, a copy of this study permit extension guide will be emailed to all of you, so you don't really need to write or take screenshots or anything like that, because we will be emailing you a copy of this. So the first page of the application will ask you for your personal information. So it'll ask you for your UCI, which you can see will be available in the top right section of your study permit. You'll also find that number in the visa that is stamped in your passport as well. It'll ask you for your name, gender, date of birth, and the country that you're from, as well as your marital status. So all that information will be asked of you on the first page of the application form. The second page of the application form continues to ask the personal information, so your nationality, your passport information, as well as if you have a national identity document. For the national identity document, I know a lot of students ask, hey, where do I find this? If you have one, you will know. If you're from a country that provides national identity documents, you'll be familiar with it. So countries such as Nigeria has a NIN, China, Shenzhen, so on and so forth. Okay. Next section, it'll ask about your contact information. Very important that this is an up-to-date address, because this is the address that they will mail your study permit and your co-op work permit to. So do make sure that the address is correct. Also do make sure that your email and your phone number are correct as well. Something very important to note, IRCC will never call you. If you do get a call from someone claiming to be IRCC, more than likely it is a scam. If something like that does happen, do reach out to your ISIA and we will help you determine whether or not that is legitimate or if it is someone trying to scam you for information. Commonly, they'll call you and say that if you don't do such and such, they will send you to jail or if they'll give you a fine. So do be wary of scams like that. IRCC, 99.9% of the time, if they need to contact you, will do so via email. All right, the next section will ask you about your travel information as well as information about your studies. So in the first section, titled Coming to Canada, it'll ask you for the date and place of your original entry to Canada. So even if you came to Canada as a visitor, or if you came to work or as a tourist, whatever the very first time you entered Canada was, that is the date you'll put. For the place, you can either put the city or the port of entry. So if you flew into Toronto, you can put YYZ, which is the airport code. You can put Pearson International Airport, or you can put Toronto. All of those answers are acceptable. If you've only entered Canada once, you can leave the most recent entry to Canada section blank. However, if you have been to Canada more than once, you'll need to put the date and place of your most recent entry. Next, it'll ask for the document number for your valid status in Canada, which for all of you will be your study permit. So that is the number you can see there that starts with an F in the top right of your study permit. So it'll be F followed by 9 digits. And that's the document number you'll put here. Next, it'll ask about the details of your study. So all of you are studying at Conestoga College, so you'll put Conestoga College. The level of your studies, most of you will be a diploma. Some of you may be bachelors. So answer that as it pertains to you. You'll also put your field of study, and for your address, you can put the address of your main campus. You'll put the DLI number, your student number, and the expected durations of your studies. Okay. Next, it'll ask for your tuition. So for the tuition, what you should put is the tuition of your upcoming semester in the tuition fees. For room and board, you will put an estimate of how much you pay in rent and multiply that to cover the upcoming semester. So if you're paying $900 a month in rent, you'll multiply that by 4, and then you'll put $3,600. For other, you'll estimate your other fees, so such as transportation, food, leisure, all of that, and put that in the other section. For the funds available for your stay, this is the amount you'll put as the total of the amount of funds that you have available for your stay here in Canada. So we'll be going over the documentation after this, but documents such as bank statements, pay stubs, if you have a GIC, or if you have any liquid investments, so such as stocks, bonds, or any other liquid forms of investments, you can total that all up, and then you'll put that in this section here. Okay. This section here is important. If it asks, in addition to a study permit, are you also applying for a work permit? If you do have co-op or field placement, you will answer yes. And then when it asks what type of work permit you're applying for, you will indicate that you're applying for a co-op work permit. Very important, you don't want to miss this section because if you apply for a work permit on its own, it can take much longer to approve than the study permit, which can cause issues for your co-op work placement if you have one coming up. So very important to indicate yes if you do have co-op coming up. Okay. If you have previous post-secondary education, you will indicate yes here. That education can be anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be Canadian education. So if you studied in a university or college back in your home country, do indicate yes and then put in the information here. Okay. If you've been employed in the last 10 years, you'll need to indicate that here as well. This employment doesn't have to just be in Canada. If you were employed in any country, anywhere in the world, you should indicate where you were employed as well as the relevant dates and occupation here. If you've never worked before, you can just indicate a student at Conestoga College, just as it is in here, and the start date and your expected end date as well. Okay, so very important, list your most recent employment for the past 10 years. Okay, the final section of the application will ask for some background information. So section 1, you'll see, will ask about health information, answer as applicable to you. Section 2 is very important. The first question, have you ever remained beyond the validity of your status? attended school without authorization or worked without authorization in Canada? For most of you, I hope the answer is no. But if the answer is yes, do not lie about it. If the answer is yes, Section D will ask you to explain what happened. Answering yes does not mean that they will refuse your application. You just need to provide an explanation of what happened so they can know and have that on your record. However, if the answer is yes and you indicate no, and Immigration Canada does find out, you will likely have your application refused for misrepresentation. And you do not want to have that happen. If your application is refused for misrepresentation, let's say you become out of status. Previously, I was saying if you are out of status, you'll need to apply for restoration of your status to be able to continuing studying. However, if you are found to be misrepresenting yourself on your application and your status does expire, you are not eligible for restoration of status, which means they will not give you a study permit and you will have to cease your studies here in Canada. So I cannot stress this enough. I have seen this happen to students before where they have lied on this section, had their application refused for misrepresentation and had to go home. If you have remained beyond the validity of your status, if you've ever been refused a visa or study permit, or you've previously applied to enter or remain in Canada, do be truthful in this section. Because the consequences of lying in Immigration Canada finding out will be very, very costly. Okay, so if there's only one thing you remember from this whole session is do not lie in this section. Okay, and the rest of the questions, most of you will, or I hope all of you will say no. It'll ask about if you've been, you'll answer as it applies to you, but they'll ask if you've had a criminal record or if you've done any time in the military or the police. Once you finish the application, you'll see a validate button. Once you click the validate button, what it'll do is it'll highlight any of the mandatory fields that you have missed. Very important to note, the validate button does not check the application for correctness. It only checks that there's an answer in the mandatory fields. So even after you hit the validate button, or even before you hit it, do go back and double check and triple check your application and make sure that everything is answered correctly. Once all the mandatory fields have been answered and you hit the validate button, it'll indicate that the form has been validated. You can save the form and it would be ready for you to upload it to the IRCC website. Okay. So it's a pretty straightforward form. Again, I will be sending you a copy of this application guide. You can see here there are yellow bubbles that have prompts. So if you have questions about any of these sections, you can just hover or click on the yellow bubble and it'll give you some tips and hints on how to answer those sections. Okay. All right, going back to the presentation. So we're going to go over the preparation of the documents. So there are typically 5 to 6 main documents that you'll need to apply for your study permit extension. One is the application form. 2 your letter of acceptance or your enrollment letter. 3, your passport. 4, proof of financial support. And 5, a digital photo of yourself. There will be additional documents depending on your situation. So 6, if you have co-op, you'll need to provide proof of your co-op, either through your acceptance letter or your co-op letter. And then 7, if you will be working in healthcare or childcare, like I mentioned before, you'll need to provide proof of your medical exam. Now, for each of those documents, you need to, if you have multiple documents for each of those sections, you'll need to combine and save those documents into one file and then upload them. So, for example, for your financial documents, you might have one document that has your bank statement, one document that has your pay stubs, one document that has your GIC. What you'll have to do is you'll have to combine all those documents into one file, either PDF or a Word document, and then upload it into the appropriate section. Okay, so the first document we already went over. It is the IMM 5709 application form. You can download a copy of this document from the Ircc website, or when you log into your account and you click on the section where you upload the document, if you click on it, it'll download a copy of that file for you. An important thing to note with this file is that you need to open it in a PDF reader. So if you have Adobe Acrobat, you'll need to open it in that application. Sometimes what students find is that their web browser, so if you're using Chrome or Internet Explorer, will try and open the document, and when it does, you'll get an error, or it'll say that this is a blank document. So what you'd have to do is download the document and make sure that you're opening it in a PDF reader. So the rest of the documents, so 1 is your passport. Again, like I said, you'd have to create a PDF or a Word document to upload your passport. What you should include is the data page. So that's the page with your photo and information, as well as any pages that has a stamp, visa, or marking from any country, and a copy of your current study permit. So if you're taking pictures, you'll need to combine all those pictures into one file and upload it in the passport section. The next document is a photo of yourself. You can just use your cell phone or a camera. When you're taking the picture, you just need to make sure that your face is clear and visible, and that you're on a plain background. So if you just take a picture on a plain white wall using your phone, that is fine. Next, proof of your IME exam if required. So again, if you're in healthcare or childcare or working with vulnerable populations, you'll need to provide proof of your immigration medical exam so that you're allowed to work in those fields. You would have received a copy of this when you first came to Canada from the authorized medical panel physician. Typically, these documents are only valid for a year. However, Ircc has made a temporary policy in place where the document will be valid up until October of this year if you've done the IME exam within the past 5 years. So if you've had, which all of you should have, an IME exam that was done within the past 5 years, you can upload that document and use that for your application. You do not need to get a new IME exam. Okay. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to take a look at the Q&A. Sorry, I forgot to take a look. So Anas has a question. Can you please walk through this section if you stayed in any other country besides your country of origin? So yes, so in the first page of the application form, let me just open that up again. first page of the application form, it asks if you have, during the past 5 years, have you lived in any country or territory other than your country of citizenship and Canada for the past 6 months? So if you have only lived in Canada and your home country for more than 6 months in the past 5 years, you can leave this section blank, so you'll just check no. However, let's say you are from South Africa and in 2022 you decided you wanted to live in Peru for 7 months. You will need to indicate that you did live in Peru, your status while you were there, and the times that you were there as well. Anas also has a question. While filling this section, I keep getting errors while I try to upload the form. Sorry, I'm not sure exactly which section you're talking about. However, when I remove this section, the form gets uploaded without errors. If you're talking about the previous countries and territories section, it might be because you put either Canada or your home country, the country of citizenship, as that country. If not, then the only other problem might be that the dates that you were putting weren't correct. So usually what it'll do is it'll highlight in red this section that isn't correct, and then let you, that way you know what section in there you have to fix. If you're still having a problem with that section, you shouldn't answer no. What you can do is book an appointment, or you can email me, or email the ISIA for your campus, and they'll be able to help walk you through that section. Another question, applied for a study permit extension and during the waiting period it expired and the result came away rejected. What should we do, and can we stay here and reapply? Yes, so as long as you weren't rejected for misrepresentation, you do have a grace period in which you can reapply for your study permit, even if it's expired. So if you need help with that, book an appointment with your ISA, and they'll be able to help walk you through that process. However, because you are out of status, you will need to pay an additional fee on top of the study permit fee. So that's why we usually recommend you try and apply 3 to 4 months before it expires, so that way even if it is rejected, you'll still be in status and you don't have to pay that extra fee. Another question, do I need to show proof of financials in my account, or my father's account will be enough to show? Yeah, so I'll be going over the financial documents, the financial part just now. So I'll answer that question when we're going through the financial documents. Is it compulsory to show funds? And if I only have 7K left in my GSC and no funds? Yes, you always have to show proof of funds. Usually what we recommend is just show everything that you have. So pay stubs, GIC, if you're getting support from your family, their bank account, as well as a letter from them stating that they'll be helping you. So yes, funds are always necessary to show for every application. I have applied for a study permit extension, but I didn't get any decision, and it's been 4 months. Can I apply for my 3-year work permit, or will there be an issue? Sorry, so I think I need a little more context. So if you are, if you've applied for your study permit and it's been 4 months, if you're going to be applying for your postgraduate work permit, if that's what you're talking about. There'll only be an issue if your current study permit has expired before you apply for the work permit. If your current study permit is still valid at the time that you're applying for your postgraduate work permit, then there's no issue. However, if your current study permit expires and you're still waiting for a decision, you don't have to worry in the sense that you're still allowed to study, you're still allowed to work. However, if you are applying for your postgraduate work permit at that time, you won't be able to work until your postgraduate work permit is approved. If that answers your question, great. If that's not exactly what you meant, ask the question again at the end of the webinar, and I'll be happy to answer that. Please, what if I have been refused a visa to the USA? What should I answer in that case? Yes, you need to indicate that. The question asks, have you ever been refused a visa to Canada or any other country? You will want to indicate that you were refused to the US, especially the US, since Canada and the US, we do share information. So do not lie about that. When I came to Canada for the first time on January 24, I did Uber for 24 minutes before the college start date. Do I need to mention this in the application? Technically, yes, you work, so you should mention that. What you can do as part of your application, and we'll go over this in the documents as well later in the application, there is a client information section. In that section, it's a chance for you to provide additional information to the immigration officer that you think that they should know, and then you can just explain that it was an accident, you didn't know, you weren't really aware of the rules, and you just stopped once you were aware. For the study permit extension, do I need to pay my first semester fees? No, you do not. You just need to prove that you have the funds to pay your fees. So if you've already paid your fees, that's great. You can include the tuition receipt as part of your application. However, if you didn't pay your fees, you can still apply. You just need to show that you have the capacity to pay that. About the photo of ourselves, can we use the digital photo that we use when we submit our study permit application? No, you shouldn't. So the documents you provide to IRCC should not be older than a year. The only exception is the IME medical exam, because they made an exception for that. But for every other document, nothing older than a year should be submitted. In the case of a bank statement, nothing older than 4 months. Okay, so the best rule of thumb is when you're doing an extension application, just do all the new documents again. Don't reuse your old documents. Just take a new photo, take new copies of your passport, new financial documents. Just give everything new. I am currently working as a caregiver. Do you also need to upload the IME medical form? So if you're doing caregiving as your work just to earn money, yes, you should. If it's part of your program, yes, you should. The last thing you'd want is to get your extension and they restrict you from working in healthcare, which caregiving is. And then you'd have to stop that job. So if you are working in healthcare, childcare, vulnerable populations, do submit your IME exam. Okay, sir, I told you my study is completing December 15th. My study permit expires December 31st. Do I need to apply for a study permit extension or no? So it's up to you. Typically what I say is if your studies are ending on the 15th and your study permit is expiring on the 31st, you'll get your completion letter and your transcripts by that date for you to apply. However, if you are feeling nervous or you just want to be on the safe side, you can apply for an extension. You can apply for an additional 3 months past the end of your studies, so you have that extra buffer time. So choice is up to you. My email, I will put my email in the chat. Yeah, so if you have a question about anything I've covered in this webinar, you can send me an email. Or if you need something more in depth, you want an appointment, you can use make an appointment with your SSA in the Student Success Portal. My medical exam was done in September 2023. My study permit expires December 2024. Do I need to do a medical exam again? No, you do not. Can I use the pay stub and employment letter of my spouse and the spousal open work permit as an additional to cover my proof of funds when applying for the permit extension? Yes. So you can. So your spouse should include a letter stating that their funds are available to you. And again, we'll go over the financial stuff in the next couple of slides. My study permit expires on November 18th, and I have an optional co-op, and I will get to know at the end of August. Do I need to apply for a study permit first and then the co-op work permit, or both at the same time? So yeah, you have enough time to find out whether or not you'll have that co-op. So since your study permit's expiring in November, again, you have up until November to apply, but as soon as you find out whether or not you got into the co-op, you can make your application then. Yeah, if you're finding out at the end of August, then you have more than enough time to wait to make that decision. Can I travel outside of Canada after applying for a study permit extension and waiting for a decision? Yes, you can. You just have to ensure that your study permit and visa are valid when you return. All right, so I'm going to pause here for now and just continue with the presentation just in the interest of time, and then I'll get back to the Q&A once we've gotten through some more slides. Okay, so we've gone over the passport, we've gone over the photo, we've gone over the immigration medical exam. Next, we're going to talk about the letter of acceptance. So, when you're applying for your study permit, you will either upload the letter of acceptance or the enrollment letter. If you will be finishing your current program and starting a new program, you'll upload a letter of acceptance. If you will be continuing your current program and you just need an extension for the extra time, you will upload a letter of enrollment. Very important. If you're continuing your current program, do not include the letter of acceptance that you got when you first started the program. Ircc, more times than not, will refuse the application because the letter of acceptance will be too old. So if you will be continuing your current program and you need to extend your study permit, make sure you download an enrollment letter. Okay? If you'll be starting a new program coming up and you have the acceptance letter for that program, then you'll upload a letter of acceptance. Okay? Another important thing, if you will be outside of your original cohort, so for example, you took an authorized leave, so that extended your studies, or you have to retake a course, which again changes your study and pushes back your graduation date, you'll need to get a custom letter of enrollment. If you download the letter of enrollment that's in the student portal with your original graduation date, again, IRCC, more likely than not, will refuse your application. So, very important, if your original study graduation date has changed, you will need to meet with your ISIA, and then you can request a custom enrollment letter. Okay, very important to remember. However, if you're on track with your studies, you haven't failed anything, you haven't taken any leaves, and you're going to graduate on your original graduation date, you can just download the enrollment letter from your student portal. Okay? Same thing with the co-op letter. If you'll be starting a new program that has a co-op, you can just include the letter of acceptance. The page that states that you have co-op will be on the third page. However, if you'll be continuing your program and you're still on track on your original graduation date, you can just download the co-op letter from the student portal. However, if you have failed a course or you took an authorized leave and you need to push back your graduation date, contact your ISIA, and then you can be able to request a custom co-op letter. Okay, very important to remember. Next, the financial documents. This is one of the most important and most anxiety-causing documents for the application. So, proof of means of financial support means that you need to be able to show that you have the funds to A, pay for your tuition, and B, support yourself with living expenses while studying here in Canada. Again, all the documents you have relating to your financials need to be combined into one document. And we strongly recommend that any source of funds that you have, that you include in this document. So what can those funds be? Your bank statements from the past 4 months. If you have a bank draft, you can include that. Pay stubs or an employment letter if you can get both. Proof of assets, proof of payment of your tuition, so your tuition receipt. Also, if you prepaid your rent or accommodation, you can include those receipts as well. Tax reports you can include, but not really necessary. If you've received a student loan, you can attach proof of that loan. If somebody will be supporting your studies, so say a family member, parent, sibling, they can include their bank statements. But if they're including their bank statements, they'll also need to provide a financial support letter. And you can see an example of that on the right side. So basically, they'll state their name, their address, their relationship to you, how much money they're supporting you with, and that money is freely given to you. Okay? If you've received any scholarships or grants, include proof of that. And if you have money in your GIC still, you can include proof of that. Again, very important, all of these documents that you're providing shouldn't be older than 4 months. Okay? Coming back to the question about the spouse, if your spouse is here and they're working, again, they can provide the financial support letter as well as a copy of their pay stubs, their bank statement, and any proof of funds that they are making. Okay, so again, you don't need to write this down or copy it. You'll be provided with a copy of this document at the end of this webinar. Optional documents. So once you've uploaded all of the mandatory documents, you'll see a section at the bottom of the portal that says client information. So this is the section where any documents that you believe should be submitted as part of your application that didn't fit into the other categories, this is where you'll put it. For example, the question with the student who accidentally worked before they started, if they wanted to explain that on their application, what they could do is they could write a short letter just explaining the circumstances surrounding that and just explain what happened and why they ended up doing that. So you can see some examples of what you can include there to provide deeper explanation about certain situations, to provide additional information that you couldn't put in the IMM 5709 form. If you want to provide proof of achievement or transcript, to provide to explain your academic background, to provide previous passport information, or any changes, like say you changed your name, that may have changed between your IRCC applications. One very important thing you will put in this situation, if you needed to take an academic break, you can provide an explanation for that in this section. Or if if you've had multiple extensions because you need to keep retaking some courses, you can just explain the situation surrounding things like that. So anything you think may hinder your extension application, this is where you have a chance to provide an explanation for that. So, uploading your documents. So, as I said, there's a section for each of those documents, as you can see here. So, the IMM 5709 form, passport, photo, medical exam, if required, proof of attendance at a DLI, so either your letter of acceptance or your enrollment letter, your co-op letter, if required, and your proof of financial support. So, those will be all the mandatory documents. And then for the optional documents, just the client information if you feel there's something that needs to be explained or added. So, last thing before we get to the review and the question and answers, there is in the guide that I will be sending you, if you don't have an IRCC account, the guide will walk you through how to create an IRC account as well as how to answer the questionnaire. Again, the guide is very thorough and you shouldn't have any problems, but if you do, again, do email your ISIA or you can book an appointment with them and they'll be more than happy to walk you through how to do that. This part here will link you to our YouTube account to a video tutorial that will walk you through step-by-step how to create an IRCC account. And then once you've done that, it'll walk you through how to start the application as well as how to answer the questions that they'll ask you for the application. Okay? Great. So we have some useful links here. Again, useful links on how to create an IRCC online account, how to open the PDF documents, how to complete the IMM 5709 form step by step, and more detailed information about the immigration medical exam. we also have some useful information about your eligibility to work, as well as how to update information or upload new documents while the application is in process. Okay. Again, every campus does have an ISIA that you can reach out to for any questions you have about anything immigration related. Using this link, it'll take you to our Find Your ISIA tool, where you can put in your program, your campus, and it'll tell you who your ISIA is and how you can contact them. Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over the remainder of the questions that you've put in the Q&A section. And again, if you have a question about something I haven't answered in this webinar, now is your chance to ask it. All right. So I have a question. I changed my college, and in the past college, I was studying hospitality, and now my course is different. Is there any problem if I upload my old study permit for a co-op work permit or not? No, so there's no problem. You can use the same study permit. If you're just applying for the co-op work permit on its own, then yeah, you can upload your old study permit, no problem. My first course is ending in December, and my visa is expiring at the end of December. I want my second year course in May of 2025. So can I get 4 months of break to work full-time as I earn my fees? Yeah, so if you have a gap in between two programs, you're allowed to work full-time in between that gap. Yeah, and then in that time, you can earn fees to put towards your second program. And you do not need to have a GIC for your second program or for a study permit extension. You just need proof of funds. It doesn't need to be in a GIC. I'm in the same college, but I've changed my program of study. I have my UMI number for my first application. Can I apply with the same UMI number for my study permit extension for the second program, or I need a new IME for it? No. So yeah, you can still use the same medical exam again. Up until October of this year, any medical exam that you took within the past 5 years is valid for use. Okay, how many days will it take for the transcript to be delivered for the work permit application? So usually it varies from course to course, but the transcript and the completion letter are usually available within a few days of completing your final exam. And once I'm on my work permit, can I do any course and work full-time, or will I be restricted to limited hours? Yeah, so once you've applied for your work permit, you're allowed to work full-time. However, if you do want to study, you'll need to apply for another study permit. So you are allowed to hold a study permit and a work permit at the same time, but your work permit does not authorize you to study. If my course costs $20K approximately, how much financial backup I need to generate or show? So typically you only need to show um, that you have funds for the upcoming semester. Uh, However, if you are able to show the funds for the full year, that is preferable. Again, what we always recommend is just show everything that you have for your application. Ircc does not penalize you or look into you for showing more funds than is necessary. So again, show everything that you have. My next program starts September 2024. Is the enrollment letter necessary? For now, I can only get the acceptance letter. I have a study permit extension as soon as I want to submit my study permit extension as soon as possible. Then I can get the co-op permit earlier because I will have placement in the next program. So as I was mentioning before, if you'll be starting a new program and you're extending your study permit, you'll want to provide the letter of acceptance for the new program. Okay? I'm going to work as a medical laboratory assistant. Do I need to submit the IME? Yes, so that's the healthcare field. So you will need to submit your IME if you don't want them to place a restriction on your study permit that will restrict you from working in that field. Can I include my friends or my boyfriend's funds? That one's a little more tricky. Typically, so when IRCC is looking at the financial documents, they're going to look at the relationship between you and the person who's providing you funds. So if it's a common law partner, if you and your boyfriend are common law, perfect. It's viewed the same as marriage. If it's a parent, sibling, someone with a blood tie, that's usually better. If it's a friend, that's more risky. So if possible, I would avoid that. I am a new student, so I have to give a medical exam. Again, only if you're working with vulnerable populations, childcare, healthcare, do you need to give your medical exam. If not, you don't need to do it. You don't need to provide it. They'll just place the restriction that you're not allowed to work in those fields. So if you're not planning to work in those fields, you don't need to give the medical exam. And again, my email is in the chat if you guys have any questions. Is there any minimum funds to show for the application? The minimum funds should be enough to cover the tuition, other, and the room and board fees that you indicated in the application. They are a bit more lenient with extensions. So again, just show everything that you have. I will have a month between the expiration of my study permit and graduation. How much will I need to show in my account, please? So if you're just extending it to cover the remainder of your semester, you only really need enough to show your living expenses because you'll be able to provide your tuition receipt as part of the funds. And then what you can do in the client information section, you can just write a short statement stating, I need an extra month to be able to apply for my work permit and stay in status. And that's the reason I'm applying. So you don't need to show a great amount of funds if you're just extending it to get you that one extra month to be able to apply for your work permit. My spouse is under an open work permit. What are all the documents I have to show for his extension? For his extension, they'll just ask for his information documents, so his photo, his application form, his passport, and then he'll just need to show proof of relationship, so marriage certificate, and then proof that you're a student. So you can provide your enrollment letter as well as your study permit. Would you suggest we apply for our spouse's open work permit along with our study permit extension? Yes, you should. Absolutely. Will we get a recording of this Zoom meeting? No, you will not. However, you will get a copy of the presentation slide as well as a copy of the extension guide. I have applied for an extension along with my husband's work permit in February, but I haven't heard anything back yet. What should I do? What you can do is you can submit a web form. I'll put a link. I'll put a link to that in the chat. What you can do is you'll give information about your application, and then just inquire as to its status. Usually they should get back to you within 3 weeks, since that would be outside of normal processing times. Next question. If I've already applied for study permit extension and decision has not yet come by today's date, I'm allowed to continue to work or study 20 hours a week. Yes, you are. So if your current study permit is still valid, then you're still studying and working under those conditions. However, if your current study permit expires, you'll still be under maintained status, which means you're allowed to continue working, you're allowed to continue studying. Canada refused my student visa in 2019, so should I mention that as well? You absolutely should. I have seen students say that no, they've never been refused. When they have been refused a Canadian visa before and they were rejected for misrepresentation, I mean, you can't lie to Ircc about your past Canadian applications because they can see your past Canadian applications. So definitely indicate that. I finished my course and only my co-op is left because of the conditions that I had in my work permit that does not let me to work in healthcare. So can I work as a part-time student while waiting for my extension? So if you are still registered, if the school has you registered as full-time, you can continue to work part-time, yes. You just won't be able to work in your co-op. However, if you have been deregistered because you're not able to work in that healthcare field, then you're not allowed to work. Okay? So your eligibility to work is based on your registration status. So if you're registered as part-time or you're deregistered, you're not allowed to work. Okay, so I applied for a co-op work permit in April, haven't heard anything yet, and WillDoc is giving a deadline of August 1st, 2024 to get your PSW placement. Can I use my study permit for the placement if I don't get feedback for the deadline? So this is a kind of on a case-by-case basis. So if you don't have a co-op work permit, technically what you're allowed to do is you can use your 20 hours a week work eligibility towards your co-op placement. So what that means is, say you have 10 hours of co-op a week, you're allowed to do so while you're waiting for your co-op permit to be approved, but then you can only work 10 hours to earn money. Okay, so that time is reduced by your co-op. Now, if your co-op requirement is greater than 20 hours a week, then that doesn't work. So what you can do is reach out to your ISIA, let them know what your situation is, and then they can determine if anything can be done about that situation, or if you'll have to wait for that co-op work permit to be approved. How to take an IME. So for an IME, if you're not in Canada and you're applying for the first time, you can go on the government website and look up a list of panel physicians. They're the only ones authorized to do IME exams. If you're in Canada, you would have already taken one, so you don't need to take a new one. However, if you go on the government website, there is a list of panel physicians that are practicing inside of Canada as well. How can I apply for extension for my kids too? So it's the same thing as applying for the extension for your spouse. While you're going through the questionnaire on the website, it'll ask if you want to apply for a family member. At that point, you'll choose yes, and then it'll ask you for the information about your kids and determine whether or not they're applying for a visitor's record or for a study permit. I'll put my email in the chat again, so it's at the bottom there. All right, I already paid my full tuition fee and I have to extend my study permit for 1 month and 15 days. How much minimum funds do I need to show? Yeah, so again, just show whatever you have. In the client information section, you can just state that you need the extra time just to finish up your course and be able to apply for your work permit. And yeah, you can include your tuition receipts as well as proof of payment. My current program ends in August, and the next program starts in September. With the placement, the co-op permit costs time, so can I submit the study permit extension right now, given that I don't have the completed transcripts? Yeah, you can submit your study permit extension now. Study permit right now, given that I don't have the completed transcripts. Yeah, I mean, you don't need the transcripts per se for your study permit extension application. Again, like the documents that you'll need is the acceptance letter for your second program, right? Or if it's just a continuation of your current program, then the enrollment letter. Okay. But yeah, you can definitely apply to extend your study permit. All right. So that does conclude the study permit and co-op work permit webinar. I hope you did find this session useful, and I'd like to thank you for attending and for your attention and for your questions. Again, if you do have any questions or you need clarification about anything, do book an appointment with your ISIA. You can book an appointment with them through the Student Success Portal, or you can go on the Conestoga website if you don't know who your ISIA is. Thank you for coming again, and I hope you enjoy your day.